Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Give 'em Heck podcast. I'm Brian. This is your host, Penny. Before we begin, I want to give an apology from last week's episode. When we were uploading the footage, it cut it off at a certain point, so we had to re-add
The ending.
But for some reason, when it uploaded,
It fixed itself.
it included the ending, even though in our edit it said we didn't.
Right.
So I apologize that there are two endings.
Technology.
I don't understand. I checked everything. There's nothing on our end that suggested that the whole thing was added. So apologies for the awkward double ending on there. Hopefully it doesn't do that again. Like I said, it legitimately didn't even show the last 7 minutes of the original video. That's why there's an extra
Ending.
ending, because we thought we had to re-record it.
But technology does whatever it wants.
It does. It really does. So apologies for that. Gotta fix my headset. But there we go. But yeah, anyway, so apologies for that. Like I said, hope it doesn't happen again. But anyway, next weekend is, you said Easter, right?
Easter weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
So
shows you how far out of time I am. So we will not be
We
doing
will
an
not.
episode
Yes.
that weekend. But other than that, I'd say you can take over, get right into it.
thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, you have my permission.
Oh, good. Yeah, like I need it.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
you do.
Oh, gee.
You may be the host, but this is my show.
We'll talk later.
So if I'm not in next week's episode,
You know what happened,
or next time's episode, I should say.
right? So again, I just want to say thank you to all of our regular viewers for showing up, and to any new viewers, welcome. And we always start our podcast with a disclaimer that we are not doctors, psychologists, or counselors. We are not given any medical or psychological advice. We are just simply here to discuss real life situations, to give hope, encouragement, and instill change.
Yes.
So in our last episode, which would have been last week, Brian, we titled it Pondering Questions on Life.
Yes.
In that particular podcast, I asked you several questions dealing on life.
Yep.
They pertain to what life is like now, where it was, and where it's going. We also talked about how the world today seems like we live in a clown world, messed up and unpredictable. And we had mentioned a song by Five Finger Death Punch called Welcome to the Circus. And I had said to you that that seemed like a good theme song for 2026. And I don't know if any of you took the time to go and either read the lyrics or listen to it, but if you did, hopefully you got the gist of what we're trying to say.
Yeah. I do want to say something, too, in regards to that, because I've had a couple of people ask me questions.
Okay.
The common question I get is, Brian, how do I deal with somebody who has a very differing opinion than I do, or a very different mindset on things, or whatever the case may be? My reaction to that is, if your reaction is violent, if your reaction is selfish, hateful, in any way, shape, or form, you are the one who is causing the discourse.
The division,
Yes.
which we talked about in our TikTok tonight.
Yeah. So we have a TikTok up, should be uploaded by the time this video is up, but it talks on episode 16,
16.
which is Love is Patient and Love is Kind. Because the thing is in a lot of the episodes that I talk about, when I'm confronted with somebody who has a differing opinion than me, even if it's completely different, my reaction is to not be hateful. Even if whether it's religious, political, whatever the case may be, don't respond with hatred or anger or violence, because that is the very thing that is causing that division.
Right.
And when relating to what last week's episode was, when we're talking about living in a clown world, I'm referring to the people who are just mindlessly angry at people who have differing opinions, different ideas, different philosophies on life. It's not about who's right and who's wrong, because you can find common ground with people. you build the foundation. And you notice a lot in today's day and age, people are just devoid of selflessness. They're all selfish.
Yep.
And I encourage you that even if you're whatever opinion you want to talk about, be the difference. Be the very thing that you are accusing the other person of being. Be the better person.
Right.
And have a conversation. Establish common ground. Be empathetic. Because, like, I'm not a huge advocate for the idea that violence doesn't solve everything, but in this case, it most certainly does not, because we're all human beings.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And doesn't that also put you into place, Brian, with everything you just said of being judgmental? And who gives you the right to be that?
Well, a lot of times you see when people have that kind of response to things of like, oh, well, this person's wrong, I'm going to show them. Where's the sympathy in that?
Or empathy?
Well, it's like, how do you know that person isn't just misguided? You know?
Upbringing.
Yeah.
Values.
It's selfishness is what it is. It's pride and arrogance. Be the difference that you want the world to be.
I like that. So some of the questions that I had asked you, and I'm just going to read down through them. So at any time you want to interject with those questions that I asked you last week, Brian? Okay.
Well, because that and I don't mean to cut you off, but because last week's episode was so emphasized on the questions and answers, I'm not going to answer any of these questions on this part.
Okay.
I want the viewers to go back and watch that episode.
Oh, I like that.
Because even if you don't agree with my answers, I like to believe that they bring a perspective that a lot of people don't think about.
Oh, I like that.
So
it's true.
You can read the questions, but go back and watch that episode if you want to know the answers I gave.
Yeah, that would have been episode 34, in case you're wondering. So some of the questions I asked him was, do you think our parents experienced the same things as we are today? Another one was, does everything happen for a reason and everything happen exactly the way it's supposed to? Do you believe that we are in control of our destinies? What happens when other people's decisions change the projection of your life? Is it still the way it's supposed to be? Oops, sorry, didn't mean to do that. Another one. What if you get something you didn't want, expect, or deserve? How does one deal with the world we live in today? Is happiness based on perception? Because perception can seem more real than reality itself. And the last one I asked was, where and how do we go from here? You good?
Yep.
All right. So maybe at the end of the day, it's about balance. And we had kind of ended it with that. Knowing what battles are worth fighting and knowing when to step back and take a moment to recover and heal, emotional healing. And with that being said, Brian, I have a friend who, because we've been talking kind of a little bit about this, and he had said to me that one of his friends, and I thought this was pretty it's pretty cool that his friend knows to do this, but he said when his friend gets to a place in his life where he feels overwhelmed, angry, can't deal with things, or whatever the situation may be, he takes a step back and he gets himself off social media. He pauses for a minute and stops watching the news, just gets away from all of the things that are in your face to kind of reset. And I thought that was really good because I don't spend a lot of time on social media or watching the news because I don't like it. And also because I think it can overwhelm you very easily. And I'm that type of person, I have to keep a check on that. But that was pretty remarkable that he can do that and does that. I don't think there's enough people that maybe do that.
Well, and see, that's the whole problem is that, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm one of those people that, I don't like the mainstream media for multiple reasons. I don't care, Fox News, CNN, all of them. I hate all of them, and I'll tell you why. Because they do nothing but incite fear and hatred.
You're not lying. It is the truth.
We're not watching news. We're watching fear mongering. Essentially, like, this isn't a conspiracy theory. We're being programmed to believe a certain narrative. And instead of doing your own research into things, and I've seen it, okay? So nobody can sit here and tell me otherwise, that the amount of things that people tell me, like even people that I hang out with, everything is just, to them, it's just fear. There's no news. It's all fear. I'm afraid of this happening. I'm afraid of that happening. How do you feel that this is happening? I'm just like, context. You have to know the context of things. You can't just see a headline and be like, oh, well, that headline says this, therefore that must be all the information.
Right.
Okay, at that point, you're openly admitting to being brainwashed.
Right. And why be in fear of something that hasn't even happened yet? What if that thing isn't going to happen?
Well, it's not even just that. Let's assume it does. What does being afraid of it do for you?
Right.
If anything, it shuts you off to the world.
That's good.
Newsflash, bad things happen in this world. That doesn't mean life comes to an end. Right. Even assuming worst case scenario on things, it doesn't give you the excuse to live in a constant state of fear
it's not
for
good.
something that may or may not even happen.
Right.
You deal with situations as they come, but you also realize that there's more to life than what's happening on the news. It's like I was watching a video on TikTok of this woman who was she was complaining about something going on in the world. I'm not going to go into detail on it, but, she was complaining about something that was going on in the world. And I was just curious. So I went to her TikTok channel.
Oh, God.
I found the video that I had just watched. The literal next upload that she posted was her and her friends at a party. It's like, okay, well, clearly what you are posting about in your prior clip isn't really that much of a concern to you if your next video is you and your friends going to a party.
Right.
That's the whole point. It's fear-mongering. The grand majority of the public doesn't care what's happening in the world. They care about what's happening in their own lives.
True.
And that's what you should focus on. Focus on yourself. Focus on your friends and family. Stop being afraid of things you have no control over. Because it doesn't do you any favors. It doesn't do the people around you any favors. It doesn't do your emotions any favors. And it most certainly doesn't do your life in general any favors.
No. And that's why I can't watch it.
And that's the whole point.
Because I know it doesn't take me long to get upset, whether sad or, like you said, fearful or whatever. And I don't want that in my life. I'm already dealing with enough. I don't need the added pressure.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you could say, well, you should be worried because what if it affects you? Then I'll deal with it when it does.
Right.
What does worrying about it now accomplish? Nothing. It accomplishes nothing.
Right.
It just makes you paranoid.
Right. Paranoia will destroy you.
Oh, I never heard that before.
Okay, so there was a quote that we ended with last week that I'm going to read again, and it was called, "What You're Feeling is Real." We are in a weird place in humanity right now, and it's hard to ignore. There is definitely a portion of the collective that seems to be rooting for chaos, rooting for failure, almost waiting for things to fall apart. You can feel it in conversations, in comments, and in the way people react to everything now. It's like some people don't just expect the worst anymore, they almost need it to happen. Not because they're bad people, but because something deeper is going on. A lot of people are tired, disappointed, and carrying more than they've actually faced. And when that builds up long enough, hope can start to feel fake, and collapse can start to feel honest. So instead of building, they watch. Instead of creating, they criticize. Instead of healing, they project. And over time, they start feeding the very thing they say they don't want. And if we're being real, you can feel how contagious that energy is. It pulls at you. It tries to hook your attention. It wants you to join it, even if it's just through frustration, scrolling, or reacting.
Yeah. And was that the whole quote?
Nope.
Oh,
A little bit more.
okay.
At the same time, there are people moving in a completely different direction. They are building, working on themselves, and creating something real, even when it's hard, even when nobody sees it, even when the world feels unstable. That's the part that doesn't get talked about enough. Because the loudest energy right now is chaos, but the most powerful energy is still creation. And the truth is, both of those exist inside of all of us. We all feel the pull to check out sometimes, to get bitter, to get caught in the noise, to stop believing anything good can come from any of this. But we also have the ability to step back, take ownership, and choose something different, not just once, but daily. Because this isn't really about the world out there, it's about what you are feeding in here. Your attention, your energy, your focus, your words, your actions. Because whatever you feed grows, and right now, that choice matters more than ever. So before you scroll, react, or get pulled into the noise, ask yourself this: am I feeding the chaos, or am I building what comes next?
Yeah. And that's kind of my whole point, is that if you are doing the very thing that you are accusing others of doing by promoting hatred, violence, and anger, you're doing the very thing that you wish not to see.
Mm-hmm.
Be the difference. Show love, compassion, and empathy for those who think differently, live differently, believe differently. Because diversity, it's so funny. I hear a lot diversity is strength, yet all I see in diversity is division. How ironic.
Right?
You know, this is why when people ask me, like, what are your views on life? I really uphold, and I know not all of our viewers are American, but, you know, I would assume that these are pretty universal mindsets. You know, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Like, yes, that is an American value, but at the same time, that should be everybody's perspective.
It's a good motto to live by.
Why do I not have the right to those things?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you could say, well, what are rights? You know, it's like we could go into a whole other conversation about it, but you know, when I see everything revolving around hatred and division, it just strikes me as ironic how in today's day and age we celebrate the diversity of everybody. Do we? Do we?
Mm-hmm. I don't
Maybe
know.
look in the mirror.
I see a lot of hatred.
I do. I see a lot of hatred and division. It's like, I don't care who's right and who's wrong. It's if you stand up for good morals. And I'm not talking about personal morals, subjective morals. I'm talking about objective morality, which is why I stand very strongly on life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You know, you're an individual who has the rights to their own thoughts and opinions and feelings. So maybe put yourself in somebody else's shoes for a change.
Mm.
Or maybe instead of trying to judge somebody based on how they think, feel, or act, why don't you try and sympathize or empathize with them a little bit? Try and maybe, like, why do you think that way?
Right.
Let's talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like in my, you know, and I've referenced it several times and throughout these episodes, but when I debate somebody and I'm having, you know, a conversation, my objective is not to necessarily prove my opponent wrong. My objective is to point out the flaws in their ideology.
Mm-hmm.
Not to make them feel bad, but if you question everything, you'll eventually get to the root of it.
You will.
It's like digging a hole to a treasure chest.
Right. And you might find out something about yourself.
Exactly. And even in my debates, sometimes I realize that, I've never thought of it that way before.
Right.
But it's like when you're digging for something, every scoop of dirt you remove gets you one step closer to the answer.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, moving on to today's podcast. You good?
Mm-hmm.
So we titled today's podcast, Moving from Chaos to Peace. Okay. So what do you think of, Brian, when I say moving from chaos to peace?
Kind of emphasizes the point that I was just making, is like it's removing the judgment and hatred from one's perspective and moving towards a place of I don't want to use the word unity because I don't like the idea of everybody being the exact same, but like moving towards the idea of understanding, moving towards the idea of showing more compassion, love, and empathy.
Yeah.
It's like,
Caring.
yeah, peace.
That's it. Yeah. It seems so simple, yet we can't do it. I don't understand it.
I think it's human nature. I think we as human beings strive to, like you said in the last quote, of like, we seek drama, but we don't realize how much harm it's doing to us.
Right. Yeah. Not helping.
Yeah, it's not
helping anyone.
And again, I want to emphasize this, that I'm not perfect. You know, I like, I don't know if you've ever heard this, but I like hearing the tea.
Yeah, I've heard that. My
Yeah.
students say that all the time.
Yeah, I like hearing the tea.
Yeah.
But when it comes to getting involved in it,
You got to be careful.
I think it depends on why you're getting involved. If you're
Right.
doing it to stir the pot, then
Right.
yeah, you're in the wrong. But if
Yeah.
you're doing it to like try to figure out what's going on and maybe try to settle the waters,
Right.
yeah. And I'm not saying everybody has to get along.
Right.
I'm just saying there are approaches to that. Like, I've cut a lot of people off in my life. You could say, well, how can you sit here and emphasize unity and again, I don't like using that word, but emphasizing peace if you've cut people off? It's because it was best for me. We've talked about it in other episodes. You know,
Sometimes it is.
We don't all have to get around the campfire and sing Kumbaya, but sometimes separation from certain individuals is that step to peace. To realize that, is it better to stay involved and try to clear up the dirty water, or would it
Right.
be better just to get out of the water in the first place?
Yep. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it's okay.
Yeah. You just don't have to surround yourself with certain people, and that's okay, because it doesn't start problems that way. It's a lot easier to move away than it is to continue to indulge in it.
Right. Exactly. So, in a world filled with chaos, my question to you, Brian, is: do you think it's possible to find peace?
Yeah, again, I think it's that separation.
Is that the key?
In general cases, yes.
Okay.
Because think about it, like the news, for example. You know, we can all sit here and say, well, I want to know what's going on. Yeah, okay, but why are you doing it?
Right.
And if you're doing it to indulge in the fear-mongering, then maybe it's best to just not watch it at all.
Yeah. Especially if it's making you angry.
Yeah, well,
You need to keep a check on that.
Well, and it's not even just that, but like, you know, finding your own peace. If you're doing things that are not bringing you any kind of comfort, then don't do it.
Right.
You know, it's like a friend of mine who once said that every time they play a certain game, it makes them anxious, it makes them scared, it makes them angry, and I'm just like, well, then why do you play it?
Right. Stop it.
And then they're like, well, I like the excitement. And I'm like, well, then don't complain when those things happen.
Exactly.
Because that's the thing. It's like,
you can't have both worlds.
it's like they keep like slamming their foot into the corner of the wall and then complaining that it hurts.
Right.
Don't do it then, or at the very least, don't complain. It's like, because and see, that's a lot of the problem that we have, is that we hear people complain about things they have no control over, and it's like, well, then why are you indulging in it?
Right. It's true.
It doesn't bring you any peace. If anything, it makes you more angry at the world. It makes you more angry in general. Why?
Exactly.
And I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying that in any of these episodes, I'm not saying that some of the thoughts I express are like literally just as easy as flipping a switch. But, it takes time and effort to change. Of course it does. But you'll be so much happier in the long run.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So although we can't control others or things that happen around us, I believe going from chaos to peace is not about finding it in others or our surroundings, but finding it within ourselves. You think that's correct? Okay. So in our quote last week, it mentioned, and that's from the quote that I just read, a lot of people are tired, disappointed, and carrying more than they've actually faced. And when that builds up long enough, hope can start to feel fake, and collapse can start to feel honest. What do you think about that particular part of the quote, Brian?
I think a lot of the burden that people carry, and I'm saying this generally, I'm not saying everybody, but in a general sense, I think people do it to themselves.
Really?
Yeah. I think we oftentimes cause our own problems. You know, because we seek things out, again, that we have no control over, or we linger on things we have no control over. And I'm not saying don't worry about it. I'm just saying it's like, what does the extended anxiety from an issue that you can't control, what does it do for you in the long term? It does nothing. Like, I'm not saying don't shut your brain off to it. That's impossible. Of course we're going to worry about things we can't control.
Right.
But like in my case, you know, sometimes, and you know, because we had a talk about it a couple of nights ago, is like in regards to finances.
Right.
You know, we can sit here all day and worry about it, but at the end of the day, does having excessive amounts of anxiety and frustration because of it do anything?
No.
Exactly.
We have to find a solution.
And you know, a good part of that is finding the things that you enjoy doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, occupy your mind. Separate yourself from the thing that's worrying you when you can't do anything to control it.
Right.
Because regardless, tomorrow will come, and the problem may either sort itself out, or it may not be as bad as you think it is.
Right.
Because worrying about it just makes a problem you can't solve worse.
Right. Exactly.
And it takes away from the things around you, the things in life you should be invested in.
Right.
Friends, family, entertainment,
Right.
you know.
Good things.
Good things. Things
Yeah.
that actually matter.
Yep. So I'm going to ask you this question, but before you answer it, I'm going to also add a little bit to it. So what makes it seem like it's so much easier for others to move on? Let me explain. So the part of that quote said, carrying more than you've actually faced. Now I'm going to give you an example, and then I'll reread the question.
Mm-hmm.
So like when Mom passed away, and Dad too, I had a really hard time with it, obviously, and I know viewers out there, you know, you've lost parents, people that are close to you, and it's been hard to move on. But I know, Brian, people who have lost parents, and it seems like it for them, it was easier to move on, right? So with that being said, what makes it seem like it's so much easier for others to move on than some others? Does that make sense?
Now, when you're talking about this, are you not just referring to losing somebody? Or are you talking about
I'm talking about maybe anything in general. Some people can just really move on with life and, like you said before, roll with the punches, where others, it just carries the weight so much more. Like maybe my situation with losing my parents, you know, I can say, you know, I can think of a number of different friends that I have that have lost their parents. Again, to me, it seems like it's been easy for them. I'm not saying maybe it isn't, but they just seem to have moved on much faster and further.
I think it depends on the mindset. Like, again, you know, everybody's different. Everybody grieves differently. Everybody resolves issues in their heads faster or, you know, slower, depending on the individual. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with extended grieving processes, even in multiple situations. It doesn't have to be just losing a family member, but I think it depends on like mindset, discipline, perspective. You know, there's a lot of things that can determine a person's mindset in those situations. I know for me, you know how close I was to Nana, and yet I moved on very quickly.
You did.
It's not a matter of because I didn't care. It's a matter of because I grieved in my own way, and knowing that extended feelings of loss are not going to do anything. You know, it just depends on who you are. It could even just be purely a disciplinary thing.
I'm wondering if that's it. There's got to be something to
It's
it.
got its mindset, discipline, perspective. All of those things matter. And some people, I'm not saying that if you don't heal quickly, you lack discipline. I'm just saying everybody grieves differently.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not like I would sit next to somebody who was, you know, still struggling with it, you know, days, months, weeks, years later, and be like, you need to get over yourself. I'm not going to say that.
Right.
You know, it's just, all I can do in that situation. I think it's people, somebody like me, that can get over it quickly to comfort those who can't. It's like it's a duty of mine
I like that.
to bring a level of understanding to somebody else or to help that other person grieve.
Because I remember when you said that, because we talked about this before, and I asked you, how you got over it so quickly. And one of the things you had said is that you remember the good times. That's what you really, really focus on. And I get that. But for me, it's not, yes, I tried to do that. But there's such a big part of me missing now. It's like an emptiness that I can't fill.
And that's okay. Why does that have to be a bad thing? Why does that have to take away from the you?
I don't know. How do you fill an empty space?
That's up to you to decide. But it's like, for me, thinking of the good times, it was me like being thankful for that, having that experience. And instead of dwelling on it and being, I don't mean for this to sound insensitive for others who have gone through this, because, I went through it too. But I don't want to sit here and be selfish and think I just want her back because it made me happy. I did the best that I could with the time that I had, realizing that, life in general with everybody is finite, and having the experience was the fulfillment. That was the hole that was filled.
Wow. Sometimes I hate you for those things.
And see, that's the perspective I'm talking about. It's the change of perspective, not the situation itself.
And that's what I'm talking about, easy moving on, right? Maybe I'll be in the same place where you're at someday. I don't know. I just don't know how to fill that void. I don't know what to fill it with. And maybe those are the wrong questions to ask, but when you say carrying more than they've actually faced, that's how I feel. I don't know how to find peace in it.
And see, that's a question I can't answer. Like that's something that you're going to have to find out on your own. And that's okay, because everybody's different. Because one solution for one problem for one person cannot be a solution for somebody else.
Absolutely.
Perspective is what matters, but only the individual has that perspective.
Yeah.
I can give you mine, but I can't give you mine.
Right.
So.
I get it. So, sometimes life can feel so much heavier than maybe what it needs to be. So here's my question to you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think we often make things more than what they are, or something that they are not?
I think in some perspectives, yes.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I guess it would depend. Like, obviously, we can probably think of 100 different things. I would say probably in my case, like I can just give a random example. A lot of progress I make in a game, and then all of a sudden I lose it. Yeah, I'll be angry for a bit and be like, well, that's a lot of time wasted. But at the end of the day, does it really matter?
No.
Exactly. So perspective is everything.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
I think it depends on on what happened. I've seen people make huge deals out of things that didn't matter. In those cases, I can understand their feelings, and I'm not saying their feelings are invalid. I'm just saying I think people lose themselves in those things and tend to make things more than what they are. And I think that could be an attribute to a lack of discipline. Mm-hmm. It could literally be a host of things. And, if our viewers want to give us maybe examples in the comments or on our Facebook or whatever, feel free. Not necessarily to get an answer, but be like, hey, that's an example of something that, does matter. Or this could be an example of something that really doesn't matter in the long term. Because me, I think long term.
Yes,
on a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean that I don't have emotions when small things are shattered, but I guess it depends on how much it really matters in the long term.
Right. And what it's going to do for you, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's up to the person to, explain the reasoning why they act or think or feel the way they do. And it doesn't make their feelings any less valid. It just means that maybe their lack of discipline or their perspective or whatever the case may be. It could be like I said, hundreds of different reasons. There's multiple factors.
Right.
Sometimes it could even be a lack of accountability and responsibility, again, depending on the situation. If I mess up something and something gets destroyed or deleted, you know what? I'll own up to it, because what does me denying it, whether it's to myself or to somebody else, how does it fix the problem?
Right. No, it doesn't.
If anything, sometimes just accepting something for the way that it is a good method to help you move on.
Yep. So I've heard this saying, Brian, hope deferred makes the heart sick, but when the desire is fulfilled, it is a tree of life. You want to expound on that a little bit?
Say it one more time.
Okay. Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but when the desire is fulfilled, it is a tree of life.
When the desire is fulfilled.
Hope, right?
So the desire would be hope.
I think it's what you're hoping for. It's whatever you're hoping for is fulfilled, right? That's what I think it means.
I guess it would depend. Because again, hope inadvertently can be a very selfish thing. I guess it depends on the context of what it is.
True.
Because obviously from, like hoping I win the lottery and it's fulfilled and I win, yeah, of course I'm going to be happy. But hoping I don't get punished for something that I did and I don't, who's really winning?
Right. Yeah.
Perspective is everything.
I like that.
See, now you know how deep I think.
Yeah, I never thought of it in both those ways. I was just thinking you get your desire fulfilled, that's a good thing. But maybe not always, huh?
Not always.
Wow.
I guess it depends on the context that makes hope hope is a very neutral emotion. Hope can be good or bad depending on what side of the fence you're standing on or who's standing on the other side of that fence.
True. Wow, we're going to have to dig into that a little bit more. Okay. So maybe it really is about choice, balance, focusing our attention, energy, actions, and words to the right places. About taking responsibility and accountability that is not very prevalent today. The hardest thing I find in changing myself is dealing with the anger and the disappointment and trying not to get bitter or hard towards others and life itself. And you don't sound like you have that problem, Brian.
No, not generally. Doesn't mean I don't have emotions, but, what does getting angry and bitter at the world do for me?
Maybe it's more towards myself than other people.
Well, that's, I'm sure a lot of our viewers and other individuals are dealing with the same thing. A lot of times I think to myself, I'm not unique in my problems, because we all have problems.
Yeah, I think
what gives me the right to be essentially entitled and being angry when I know there's people who are probably going through a lot worse than I am?
Wow. Your papa used to say that all the time.
And it's true. A lot of times, again, humans are inherently selfish. We tend to think of ourselves as, I'm the only one going through these problems. It's like if I get somebody that cuts out in front of me in the traffic and I think, why me? Well, there's somebody who probably got into an accident today because of a very similar situation. So count your lucky stars that you just got cut off. Doesn't mean I'm not going to get angry at the individual, but at the same time, what does me getting overly aggressive about it do? You know, it's like when I was on my way home from work one of these days. I was on my way onto the highway, and of course I have a yield in front of me because I am merging onto the interstate, and you know, there were a bunch of cars coming. I couldn't merge on because if I did, I would have gotten into an accident. And I just happened to notice the guy that was behind me was flicking me off. And I'm like, what do you expect me to do? Like, what is you getting angry at me going to help your problem? You can't merge into traffic any easier than I can.
This is what I'm talking about, Brian. And sometimes it's just the little things that I'm like, oh my word.
Yeah, and you know what? When we got on the interstate, I drove up to the speed limit and he was out of my mind. He blew past me. And, you know, good luck, good luck on your journey getting to nowhere fast.
Right.
You know, it's like, what is me getting angry at him and him ruining my day? How does that help me?
Right.
Doesn't justify anything that I do throughout the day. I'm probably never going to see that guy again.
So you talk about anger. What about disappointment?
Well, I guess it would depend on the situation. Like, I can get disappointed in one of my friends because they may have did something that they knew they shouldn't have did. But again, extended disappointment in somebody, they already know I'm disappointed in them. What is me, every time I see them, treating them like they're dirt, what does that do for me? What does that do for them? You know, it's like, okay, you've expressed your disappointment in somebody, move on.
How do you deal with certain situations, not just with friends, but just disappointment in life in general, Brian? Because we all face it, right?
Well, I guess the thing in my case, and this is something that I do encourage other people to live by, is like, yeah, you can be disappointed in life, but again, move on.
Yeah. That's where it is, I guess.
Because nobody woke up. This is the thing I don't understand, is that when people say that they don't deserve the bad things that happen to them, I say to them, who told you that things would be good? You weren't promised anything.
Right.
And if somebody in your life did say that you're gonna accomplish something, that life is gonna be good to you, they lied to you. They openly lied to your face, and you didn't call them out on it. You know, you can say, I think you have good things planned, but again, or I think there's good things planned in your life, but that's literally situational.
Right.
I would never say to one of my friends in any kind of vague sense that, you know what, I see good things in your future. I'm not just going to say that without context, you know, because again, that makes me a liar. Because when something bad happens in their life, I'm not saying they'd necessarily blame me, but it builds an expectation of disappointment. Because regardless of what kind of a life you live, whether you're a millionaire or not, you're going to have a bad day. Sometimes even a very bad day.
I guarantee it.
And you know what? That's normal.
Yeah. Wow, that's good, Brian.
Everybody puts their pants on in the morning the same exact way.
We do, don't we? So I'm going to read a quote again from Zachary Fisher, who last week's quote was from To Wrap Up for Tonight. And after I'm done, if you want to comment or add any more to the podcast. So the name of the quote actually is From Chaos to Peace. There was a time in my life when I was creating my own storms and then wondering why it kept raining. I thrived in chaos. I fed it with my thoughts, my reactions, and the way I chose to see the world. And at the same time, I played the role of the victim, believing life was happening to me instead of realizing it was shaping it. That pattern doesn't just break overnight. It breaks the moment you take ownership, not in a blaming way, but in a powerful way. The moment you realize your mindset and your environment are either building your peace or feeding your chaos. For me, everything started to change when I made a simple decision. I chose to be happy. Not because life was perfect, but because I was done letting everything outside of me control how I felt inside. I asked Creator to show me the way, and step by step, things began to unfold. Not all at once, but in a way that forced me to grow. And here's the truth most people don't talk about. It often gets harder before it gets better. When you become aware, you start seeing your patterns clearly. You start noticing what you've been allowing, what you've been attracting, and what you need to let go of. That part isn't easy, but it's necessary. Over time, as you stay committed to that shift, your life starts to reflect it. The chaos quiets. The right people come in. The wrong ones fall away. Your reaction changes everything. Your peace becomes something you protect, not something you chase. And then one day you look around and you don't even recognize your life anymore, not because you escaped it, but because you finally took responsibility for creating something better. Trust what's unfolding, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it doesn't make sense yet. It's all leading you somewhere higher if you're willing to walk through it.
And I'd have to say that it's a good quote, and it's true, because a lot of the concerns that we have in this life are self-made. And I'm not talking about the situations themselves, I'm talking about the reactions to them. Most of the time, we do end up making our own storms. And I think it's important to know that regardless of how much the rain falls, the sun is always shining behind the clouds. And eventually the sun will break through.
Are you saying, Brian, that we tend to make our situations much worse than they need to be?
I'd say generally, yes.
Yeah.
Again, situations vary.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, what does grieving at the falling rain do for you?
Mm-hmm.
When you've had an umbrella in your pocket the whole time?
Yeah, it's always about finding that little bit of hope somewhere, right?
Well, we always have things in life we look forward, like things that we can look forward to.
Right.
It doesn't mean that the bad things aren't still there. It's just what does indulging in the bad,
right,
or dwelling on it, what does it do for you in the long term? It does nothing.
Right.
It does nothing. And honestly, viewing your problems as something that is unique to you, I find to be incredibly selfish.
Right.
You know, again, the whole why me thing. Well, you know what? It's not just you.
Mm-hmm.
You're not the only one going through that situation. I guarantee you there's probably more that have gone through that situation than you, and probably even more that are going through worse.
Right.
So instead of looking at life as why me, think of it as what can I do for others who have gone through this same thing?
Mm-hmm. It's about the small wins, isn't it? That little bit of hope. That's what it is.
All it takes is one spark to start a fire. Be the spark.
Right. Yeah. That's good, Brian. So, if you're ready, I'm going to read our quote and wrap this up. So, believe in yourself, be patient with yourself, and know that your best is always good enough. And again, before I read where we can be found, just a reminder that we will not be on, we will not have a podcast next week because it is Easter weekend, and we will be with family and friends. Woohoo! So I hope you guys are also going to be with family and friends during your Easter time, and then hopefully we will have a podcast the week after. But we can be found on many different platforms like YouTube, Spotify, X, and Apple. Please like, share, subscribe, and turn on any notifications so you don't miss another podcast. Our email is giveemheck@gmail.com. We do have a Facebook that you can join us called Give 'em Heck Podcast, where we have any information or updates. We do post our videos on there also. And we do have a TikTok at Give 'em Heck Official.
Awesome. Well, I hope everybody has a good rest of their weekend and have a great Easter weekend as well. And we will see you on the next episode. Goodbye, everyone.
Good night.